All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our session. We're going to have everyone answer what region they're coming from. That way we have a better idea of which regions we need to reach back out to at the end of the meeting. We're going to introduce our team here at United for Children. We have attended the last community leader meeting. We've recorded quite a few of them, but we want to make sure that we're answering all the different questions that we've gotten in. So we'll start with those questions, and then the end of the session will be any questions that we haven't already answered that you still have on your mind. We want to make sure that we're getting to those. My name is Amber Donnelly, and I'm the Deputy Director here at United for Children. Previous to this, I did work at one of the community partnerships, so I am familiar with a couple of people either through the community leader work, the community partnership work, or just different early childhood initiatives that we have around the state. We also have 3 of our team members here. We have Krista Granjeno, who is the senior manager over this contract. We have Louis Rouchet, who is going to be the community leader coordinator. If you guys are selected as community leaders, or even if you're just working within your communities, you will hear a lot from Louis. We also have Sarah Hill, and Sarah is our point person for answering any questions that you guys have during the interview process or during the application process. And we also have Megan Mansouri here, and she's the person who is in charge of all our comms, so you'll be getting a lot of stuff from her. All right, I'm gonna make sure I am. Looks like we've got quite a few people here, and most of our regions are represented. We've got just one region that we'll definitely need to reach back out to, so thank you for filling that out. And here are the results of that survey, just so you guys can see kind of which regions are represented, and if you know people in those regions that are not yet represented, and I do know a couple people, so we'll make sure we get that. Make sure I've got everybody admitted. All right, well, welcome to the session. If I am speaking too fast, or if I go through something that you are not understanding, feel free to raise your hand. We're going to have, if you put questions in the chat, we do have some of our team members that will be looking at those to make sure that we answer everything that we're able to today, and to make sure we are doing that. Hold on, let's cancel that. All right. I'm going to go through my list of questions that we did gather from our last meeting. One of the big questions is just what will you be doing as a community leader if you are selected? So we are going to post a memorandum of understanding, and this would be the memorandum that would go out between United for Children and any selected community leaders. That way you will know exactly what it is that you're being expected to do in some of those timeframes. So one of those big ones, and this is a continuation of the work we've all been doing under the previous work, is to assist in the identification of regional partnership resources that you have. There's a lot of things that are already in place, and we want to make sure that we're highlighting that for all the children and families so that they know how to access resources. That's one of the big reasons why we're here. Also be supporting the work of the early childhood education outreach activities, making sure people know how important it is to have a coordinated system, and for families to be able to know how do they access resources. You know, if they're in a large region, a lot of times there's more resources. In smaller regions, a lot of times there are not quite as many And so we want to make sure that any family, no matter where it is they live in our state, has accesses to resources, and that we're able to make sure that their children have everything they need to feel safe, healthy, ready to learn. We want to make sure we're promoting the early childhood programs in your region and all the amazing things that they offer. So some people have asked, how do I know what region I'm in? We are going to be following the 7 regions that were set forth by the Office of Childhood. These are the same regions that are being used by the Early Childhood Collaborative Network, so the infant toddler, preschool, and home-based coaching networks, as well as the inclusion contracts. So if you are familiar with any of those, you will be able to easily follow them. We will also include the map in the FAQ so you know exactly how many counties are included in each region. Do I need to apply if I'm already a community leader? One of the big things that we did as community leaders towards the end of the last contract was we made recommendations for who we thought would be the best person to represent the area that we were in. Those areas, as we know, we're taking 30 regions and we're putting them into 7. This will allow us to have less coordination from having to take in 30 points, and then there'll be more of a regional collaboration. So the smaller regions working together within those larger regions to really look at what does education look like in the Northeast corner? What does education look like in the Southeast corner? And so those are going to be a little bit different. We know each part of our state is very unique, and we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what those needs are. What is the deadline? So there's a couple of deadlines that we have in here. The first one is that we'd like to try to get nominations by the 11th. That's a super quick turnaround, we know. And that doesn't mean that if you want to raise your hand and it's after the 11th that you can't still raise your hand and apply. This is so we know who's out there, and we can also start to identify if we're not seeing representation in a region. We're going to do a lot of work. We're going to start calling people that we know are in those regions to make sure they're aware that this is going out, that we're looking at community leaders. We know that not everybody did the extension. We know that there's a lot of stuff going on. Schools are just getting back into session. And so we want to make sure that we have a good picture of who's already knows about it, who are we needing to reach back out to. And so that's why the 11th is so close as it is. The other thing we're going to look at is the applications are due by the 17th. That's to give the selection committee enough time to see, is there an applicant that might need additional support, or is there an area that is not represented? And you will see the MOU before the August 11th deadline. We're going to send that out as a follow-up to this meeting. And then that way you will be able to see everything that is being asked of community leaders before you apply. We've been asked what the selection process looks like. What we're going to be doing is after the 17th, when we look at the who all has applied, we're going to have members of United for Children as well as the Office of Childhood come together to look at those applications. And one of the things we're really looking for is making sure that the regions do have representation from each of the different parts of it. If not, we're reaching back out. The other thing we're going to be looking at is, do we have people that are new to the work? Are they experienced? We have a rubric that will also be shared on the site prior to, along with the MOU, prior to you applying, so that you know exactly what is it we're looking for. Another question we have is, what will United for Children provide the community leaders? We have a couple of different resources that we're going to be doing. We'll be doing similar to what the Office of Child had facilitated prior to us coming on board, is we'll hold a monthly meeting where people can come together, see what's going on across the state, share different things that are going on, what's going well, what kind of efforts are we involved in. There'll also be some capacity building support, which does include training around fundraising and marketing, so that when we're asking people to come up with a 50% match, that can either be in-kind support, which we can help you figure out how to document the in-kind. It'll also be, we have a contracted partner who will be doing a week-long seminar that goes over a couple of things, including fundraising. Let me see. During that selection process, if we're seeing somebody that, maybe we have a question about one of the answers that you've given, and that question would either, increase your score, we would reach back out to make sure that we're fully understanding what it is that you are responding to in that area. Let's see, reading through our questions. Can you withdraw from the process? Absolutely, this is a voluntary process. And so what we would be doing is people will be nominated. Not everyone who's nominated is wanting to continue or to do the work. If you're nominated, we'll call you. You'll make sure that you are accepting the nomination and that you have the application. If you apply and you see everything and either you don't get board approval, there's something that just looks off, we'll do everything we can to work through, making you feel more at ease with what is going to be doing and what kind of support you'll get. But in the end, if you're deciding that this just isn't what you are wanting to do at this time, there will definitely be some facilitation of bringing in another community leader in that person's place. What does the 50% match look like? So that's one of the really big questions that we received. So the thing we're looking through is each region's different. There's a lot of resources that are put in place for different regions, a lot of meetings that are already in there. And so some people have staff that they are already able to dedicate to this work. Some people don't have anybody. So the money in itself is going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be one region gets the full amount and then they're the primary person and then they have to subcontract to the second person. Each community leader that is selected will have a separate MOU. So the school district, in the old system, the school district and the community leader, nonprofit agency had one contract and it went through the school district. The way it'll look now is the school would get one contract and the other person would have another one. We are hoping to make sure that schools are still included, some sort of an educational public entity to make sure that is represented within the region. The other one could be an individual, it could be a nonprofit agency, it could be a business. And so each region is going to look a little bit different. We are looking at starting with a baseline funding of $10,000 for the individual or region, the individual or not the region, the entity that's going to be contracting with United for Children. What the person would be required to do is to show $10,000 in matching. So that could be volunteer hours, that could be a grant that we're assisting you with securing, that could be meeting space that you're able to secure in your area. and there are ways to show the in-kind. Currently, as an example, volunteer hour is worth about $31 an hour. So that is one big way to show in-kind, is when you're having volunteers in your area. Meeting space would be, you can either figure it out by square foot, or you can figure it out by how much that person would normally charge to contract it. It could be a portion of staff's time. So if you are already being paid out of some other area, you could also, if that person was part-time, you could also fund their part of their position out of this. You would not be able to supplant funding. So if that position is already fully funded, you wouldn't use this to fund a position that's already funded. It could also be used for things like printing, or if you already have a source for printing, that could be used as part of the match. Let's see. Well, another question was if you had to have the match up front. The match does not have to be, like, you don't have to have that money already set aside, but you could have, you could have like this, this is the way that we're planning to raise the money, or this is how we're going to be documenting that. How will community leaders be documented for the work? What we're doing is we're going to set up invoicing similar to what you would have for any of your other contracts, where you would return, what activities you've done, the meetings, just like a short explanation of what you've done, and then the invoice for what costs you've incurred during that month. And then we're looking at a due date of the 10th to tell us what you've done in the previous month. So that should be similar to a lot of the things that you've already done. We've also asked if people will know who else is being nominated or applying. What we'll be doing is, once the nominations come in and they are confirmed, we will post those so that you know who else is out there. Because, being in a region, if you're already working together, that may help you to even work together on the proposal. And definitely once people have been selected, after we've notified those individuals and confirmed that they still want to get it, we'll announce to the full group. And then we will be having people, we still have the same person. I'm going to go ahead and copy that email and put it in the chat for who you would contact after the session. I did see quite a few comments going into the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up for, that was kind of a really quick, run through of all the different questions we've been given. I'm going to open it up so you can ask additional questions. We'll take the ones that were in the chat first. Louis, would you mind reading through those?
Yeah, hey guys. So I answered one of them, that the MOU will be distributed once it's approved by the OOC. It will also be housed in the FAQ once that's done. We had another question about if the $10,000 budget per region community leader per year, and how that money is going to be distributed.
So that would be a base amount. So what we're going to be doing is looking at each region to see what's already in place. We know that some people don't need as much, other people may need more. So starting with $10,000 per community leader, knowing that there can be up to 4 community leaders per region. So if not all 4 people are selected, then we can reach back out to see if additional funds are needed. We could make those available. So if only 2 people were in the region instead of 4, more money could be given to those 2 community partners. But we will make sure that each person gets at least the $10,000 in order to support the work that you're doing. And if anybody wants to come off a mute or raise their hand if you have a question.
Hi, I'm Shauna Kerper, and I'm from the Mid-Missouri region, Region 16, and I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
One is kind of around the fiscal budget, the fiscal responsibility, and the budget planning. I think it's really hard as with my organization to be able to go back and say this is potential, because I can tell you they'll probably say no, we're not going to allocate your time for $10,000 even with our in-kind match to that. So is it something when we fill out our application, we should put a potential budget in there for you so we know?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that would be very helpful, so that if we're saying that that's the kind of the minimum, but you need more in order for your board or your organization to say yes, I would put the full budget in there. What kind of match you're wanting to do, and in the MOU we could attach a document that would help you do that if you like.
And then currently in our region, we have our community leaders, and then we have a couple of kind of, I guess you could say, subcontractors with us. And that sounds similar to what you were saying with that budget. So will we budget for those in that if we're wanting to try and continue using them? Or is that just notes that we're going to be giving with you as this is our plan that we've talked about with our region?
Yes, we're wanting to give that kind of authority to the region. So within the budget that you're proposing, anything that you're wanting to do as far as subcontracts or anything in that line would be a part of that proposal.
Are you saying that this proposal needs to be in the MOU or in the application?
Just in the application.
There's not a spot for the budget in the application on those questions. Okay. And it does max out. Like there's max on
characters. Okay,
we'll make sure on letters, and there's no spot for a budget.
Okay, we'll make sure we add that. And were there, Jennifer, were there questions in particular that looked like you needed more space to write? Because we can also increase some of the fields, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know that.
Amber, can I offer a clarifying question just to make sure that we're all understanding the same thing the same way?
Oh, yes.
So I think sometimes or some people might have heard that $10,000 and been like, whoa, hold on, because sometimes that number can be a little scary. And so when we hear numbers, we kind of get focused on just that number. But what I heard you say is that that's a baseline. So that's a starting point. And then you're going and you're looking at the individual needs of each region, correct? And then
correct, Erin, yes.
We're really off of those needs.
Correct. One of the things we really wanted to do is once Louis starts talking to everybody, we know that there are regions that don't have positions already in place, that don't have the resources maybe than a larger region might have. But also if there's fewer people doing the work, then definitely there's more money in there to be able to distribute in a 2-person region versus in a 4 community leader region. And so we really want to honor the work that each person is putting into it. And we know that there are some organizations that really, they already exist and they already are doing similar work. And so they're basically able to in-kind almost all of the things that we're doing to, to be a part of that community leader group. And they just really want to be the representative of that region because it aligns so closely with their mission. And in those instances, that would be something that, we would be able to work with them to redistribute things that might have gone to them in the beginning into other areas of the region that have more need.
And just to follow up one more time, and those budgets would be based per community leader, not on a regional cap, not on that collective number. It would be per person signing an MOU, correct?
That is correct. It'll be, each person will be signing their separate MOU, which would attach a separate budget just to them. So
Okay.
you're not needing to, I think especially with deadlines, you're not needing to go through anybody to meet a deadline. You're working directly with us. And so that is a slight change that I think is important to note, is it's not one thing per region. It is individual with the community leaders. Kyle, I saw you had your voice off earlier, or your mute off earlier.
Thank you, Amber. Just again, just to be crystal clear and have so we're all on the same page and kind of a follow up to what the other questions are. So it's the baseline is 10,000 per person per regional collaboration. So if you have 4 people that are part of that region's community leader work, that's $40,000 and $40,000 match. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then just another follow-up is, how much can we bill for indirect? Because I know that's been an issue with some of the contracts recently with the state.
So this is actually directly with United for Children. So if you are able to show that your indirect is higher, then we're not asking for a justification. We do know that there are some agencies that have maybe a 16%. And, a lot of times if it's a state contract, you're held to 5, 8, 10, one of those kind of numbers. And so if it's something that's established within your organization and it's within the amount that you're receiving, there is not that there's not that stipulation.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Kimberly, you had a question?
Yes, ma'am. Hello. I just was going to, again, do some clarification here to make sure. So let's say my region only has 2 community leaders that apply and are accepted. Will those 2 community leaders just still continue to be responsible for their counties that they have been in the past? Or are they going to be responsible? Will they have to split that region and take care of the whole region?
Right. The people that are correct, the people that are working together would be responsible for the whole region. What I would like to offer is that Louie is going to be our community leader coordinator. And we do realize that some of these regions are very large. And so part of that collaboration that Louie will be doing is helping to organize, if you're having trouble. I think the big thing that I noticed when I was looking at the regions is there are a lot of school districts within each of these regions. And, just in the St. Louis County region, we have 24 school districts just in one county. And it is a lot to get all of those people on the same page. And what we're really trying to do is make sure that every child has access to those services. So helping to coordinate maybe like, how do people get into the special education if that's a big need of the parents? If we're identifying needs, how can we work together? And I don't want you guys to think you're out there by yourself, because Louie is a big networker. He really is good at that kind of work. So they would definitely be working with you to make those connections. If you do have a very large region and a small number of community leaders to do that work.
Okay, so again, just clear. So if there's one person that only applies, that gets it, they're going to be, along with Louie, responsible for doing that whole region, and therefore they would have a $40,000 budget with that $40,000 in-kind match that they would be responsible for.
It's not necessarily like a dollar for dollar. So yeah, up to that amount. But if they don't need it, then we would make sure that another region gets it. So, and then if another region doesn't need it, then that could help, go into other regions. So it's not a solid, black or white thing that, we have a pool that we're going to be able to take from to make sure that each region is funded the way that they're needed to. And there would never be an opportunity where it was only one person in the region. If there's only one person that applies for that region, our duty is going to be to that region to make sure we're helping to identify a partner so that it doesn't just fall to one person. And if that person that applies is the school district, we'll be looking for, what kind of community partnerships or community leaders do we know that are in those areas that could serve as a partner. So, if there's single people out there, we'll be the person, the matchmaker, to make sure there's someone to help you out so that there wouldn't be a situation where there's only one, but it is that full region. You are correct.
Okay, and then one more real quick one, just my mind thinking when you were talking in-kind match and all the possibilities. So like I have a very, I love my leadership team. They're incredible. They're all professionals, and they donate their time, a minimum of 2 hours every month, to meet with me. Would that be allowed? Like, is that $31 an hour, 2 hours?
Yeah, we would help. Yes, we would help you document that so that you would be able to show that as a match.
Okay, thank you.
Amber, one more point of clarification, because I think I heard you say something, Kim, and I wanted to make sure that we hit on this. You said $40,000 per region. I don't believe I heard that there's a cap on there's no $40,000 per region. I think that was a misunderstanding. Correct.
Correct. That was what I was, yeah. And just in case that wasn't clear, Kimberly, that's just as a ballpark. But if other regions don't need it, then, we may fund another region more. And if, so there's some give and take to that. We just want to make sure that there's a minimum, but not necessarily, well, there's a maximum because we only get so much money, but
So to be clear, there's no $40,000 anywhere. It's $10,000 as a baseline to grow from. No one would be offered less than $10,000. And then based on your evaluation of needs and budgets, you would then build a budget to meet the needs of that individual contractor. Correct? Okay.
That is correct.
I just wanted to make sure that there was no confusion there on that one. Thank you.
Amber, I'm curious on the budget, which, I mean, I know it's not out yet and it's part of the MOU and all of that. If we are required to come up with what it would cost to do our region, we're just focused on our region. You know what I mean? Like Kimberly was saying, if we take over the whole thing, are you going to be taking into effect? I have no idea what the rest of the region has been doing. And if they don't sign up, how would we know? Does that make sense what my question is?
Yeah, so that would be part of our job, is to make sure that because we're combining so many regions, is to make sure that the work that was done in the other regions isn't lost, that those people are still connected. The people who would be contracted with are more the coordinators for that big region. So there's a cost associated with gathering all the data that we need. There's a cost associated with hosting the meetings and having to be the person who's compiling the data. And so those MOUs are more to support those people who are doing that collaboration, that, all of that work that comes along with that, if that helps to answer that question.
Okay, so we won't be in the dark. You'll help us.
Yes, absolutely.
If you were happen to get a bigger region. Okay.
Yeah, yes,
Thank you.
definitely. We want to be side-by-side partners. A lot of us come from smaller communities. I think I had shared in one of the other meetings, like I remember when the sign outside of my the region my family comes with, when it said 811, and I just went back and looked at their page and it's 485 now. It's a small farming community. And so we do know small communities, and we also obviously, being located in the St. Louis region, are also familiar with those urban things. And we do know that every single region is going to look very different. One of the things we know is that because they're so large, we're going to be dependent on some of these forums, such as Zoom, but also helping people to how do you navigate Zoom, and how can you really host a good meeting, but also realizing that the cell service and the data service in some of our more rural communities just is not very reliable, and so those people might need additional assistance in having something that makes their internet stronger, or those kind of resources. And so in that respect, while we are selecting community leaders by the end of August, what we want to make sure people understand is that MOU and the matching and everything, that's going to take a little bit longer, so that we really can, we're not going to come with this one cookie cutter fit and everybody gets this amount and everybody gets this kind of support. We really want to see what those needs are. And so if we have the roadmap ahead of time, then I think that does disservice to what we would need to do to really get to know the people who are selected and really get to know the regions that are out there.
Amber, I had a couple questions still. One is, are these year contracts or commitments that you're looking for, or are they 3 years like yours?
We were planning on doing,
renewable.
correct. We were planning on doing a 3-year agreement. And then what we'll put in there is, if there's no cause for a separation, technically we would want a little bit more time in order to help find somebody that would replace that community leader. It's always contingent, of course, on continuous funding from the Office of Childhood, but the intent would be not to change leaders every year, not to go through a MOUing process, but to keep somebody consistent. In the same vein, if that person is wanting to rotate off, we will be there to facilitate that transition.
Sorry, I have to step in. I think there might be a little bit of confusion there. So this, the R&R contract is a 1-year contract with options for renewal. And so technically it's a 1-year contract. So then agreements, you wouldn't have funding beyond that. So your agreements would align with that as well.
Sorry, I missed
clarity. Sorry, that gets really confusing with the structure of contracts.
Yeah.
It
1 year
options for renewals.
Yeah, so it would match that. So it would be the 1 year with the renewals, but we wouldn't be going through a new selection process.
Correct. So the intent to keep people the same people and not move around, but that like expiration kind of has to line up with the funding. So
right. Thank you for clarifying, Erin. Right.
Sorry, but
can't promise the money longer than the state is funding us. So obviously contingent on funding.
So another question, my community partner couldn't be on today, so I have her questions too, is around branding. Will we keep the branding? I know your intent is to create branding, but will it be represented from the Office of Childhood, or will be community leaders represented for United for Children?
It would be represented for the community leader group specifically. So one of the tasks that we are going to be taking on is helping community leaders to brand themselves. So it would be something that would represent the entire group of community leaders. So we'll be mocking up some logos that could be used as potential possibilities, showing that to the Office of Childhood, showing that to all the community leaders, having input into what is that. Because the idea is that, once this gets started, we want to maintain sustainability. And so being able to say, I'm a community leader, this is the kind of stuff that we're helping to do as part of that awareness campaign around helping families access resources.
So another question I had is if you could go over the timeline again of when we will receive the draft MOUs to be able to review, and then when those documents we can expect to have them from you guys, and then this next week is the deadline for applications, and then what's the timeline for notification and contracts to be in place and so on.
So we are planning to have the MOU, the edited version, approved version of the MOU, the FAQ from this session, plus the previous ones, as well as the recording for this would all be available on the 11th. We'll send it as a follow-up email so that everybody has it. If you were here, or even if you were not able to be present here, the timeline, the deadline for applying is the 17th. If we're not seeing representation from different regions that following week, as we're doing selection, we'll be reaching back out to people to make sure that everybody is represented, to make sure that we do have things. And then the community leader would be notified by, I'm gonna say the 30th, that they've been selected, 29th, 30th, so that we could have everybody solidified by the 31st. And then the MOUs is going to be a little bit longer of a process so that we can really work together to finalize what is exactly needed, allow people to get board approval if they need that. And so that would take just a little bit longer. But I would say within, a month or two that all of that would be finalized. We really do want to make sure that people are able to have those processes. And we know that, boards don't always meet every month, and, it's not really feasible sometimes to call a special session. So we do want to make sure that we're honoring that a lot of people do have to get approval before they're able to sign that kind of an agreement. Louis, did you see any other questions in the comment section that I may have missed?
Not to my knowledge. I believe we've answered all of the ones that are posted, but please correct me if I'm wrong if you hear something.
I have one more, sorry. I know we're going to come with a budget, but I also know you talked about hourly rates of for the in-kind. So for the community leaders, will we be tracking our time now? Like I did sometimes 52 hours this week on community leader work. And you're laughing at some of you, but we all do it, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. I only because I've had to do that so many times. Yeah, so no, not for your time, but for the match. So if you're saying volunteer hours, and I think that would be a little bit easier to track. So if you have a 2-hour open house and you have 5 volunteers, you would just take your 5 volunteers times the 2 hours times the $31, and then you would have like what your match was for that volunteer, and we would probably just collect it even as a volunteer, and that's just to help document the match, because the match is not going to be all up front. We do know that there's some that we do know that there's going to be a process of having to go out and look for investments or to have those events, and you can always project that Children's Trust Fund currently has a RFP out for the top part of the state, and if you're in Northeast, Northwest, or North Central, that I believe you're eligible to apply for those Children's Trust Fund, but you're not going to know right away if you get those. And so so some of that'll come as the year goes through.
Hi, Kimberly again. So another question, kind of fiscal agent question a little bit, to touch base with that. Most of us, it has been the school district. And so is that still highly encouraged to keep that relationship as the fiscal agent with the school district, or just a relationship so we can go outside of the school district for that fiscal agent if needed?
Correct. Anybody would be their own fiscal agent. The only would be if you are not a 501c3 and you're needing to get matched, that if you can't find one, then United for Children could serve as your fiscal agent, just to make sure that if you're receiving donations, that you're able to process those as a nonprofit. this school district would not be the main fiscal agent for the region anymore. They would be for themselves, but not for the other
But they
people.
could they be, or really
They
no?
could be. They could be.
Okay, thank you.
So Amber, on the same kind of question, on a reimbursement, so we would invoice straight to, because my superintendent's gonna ask, we would invoice then to United for Children
Correct.
and no more to DESE. And then the
Correct.
reimbursement comes back into the school district from United for Children on a
Correct.
monthly basis, the same
Yes.
as it's happening now on the 10th or whatever of every month. So it's
Yeah.
going to be coming in like by way of check, because right now if it comes into the school district through DESE, it's a little bit easier to funnel that money through.
I am not 100% sure on that. If we do checks or if we're able to do direct deposit, I think that, but let me check on that and I'll
Okay.
include that in the FAQ when we
Right.
send
There's
it
just
out.
some things like, you know, with accounts and all of that, we need to set up another, do you know what I mean? They're gonna
Right,
want to know if it needs another number or all of that up in the accounting and just.
Okay.
Amber,
Thank you.
I'm here. I can answer that for you if you
Oh,
want.
thank you. This was the person
Hi,
I was.
everybody. I'm Deanna Finch. I'm the executive director, and I'm here just as a fly on the wall to be supportive and answer any questions that may come my way. But this is something.
Oh, you just muted yourself.
I swiped my screen. If we are going to serve as a fiscal agent for you, then we have a process where, you know, if you need it by check, you can get it by check. If you need it by direct deposit, we can do that, and we would collect that information from you and work with you directly.
All right, thank you.
Did that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, do we have any questions? So I did put Sarah Hill's information in the chat. She's the one collecting our current questions. So if you think of something after and you didn't have a chance to get in here, you can email that directly to Sarah, and she will make sure that we all look at it and get those answers back out. We'll be posting the frequently asked questions, the MOU, and the map to our website. So in addition to sending them out to you directly, if we're getting additional questions in after we send that initial one out, we'll include those on that, the web page. So we'll send you guys a link to that site, as well as the document that'll have it in there already, the map and the MOU.
Amber, thank you for sharing that information in the chat too. I did have one email that came through, a question about if they've already submitted the application, but there's been some budget changes. Is it necessary to redo that application to account for those changes?
Right. So what I would say is that if you've already filled it out and you just have an adjustment, that you could send those adjustments directly to Sarah, and we would make sure that that got in with your original application.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Amber, we are on for another listening session on Friday, I believe. Do we need to attend that still? That was like the one with a perv, I believe.
Jennifer, these are two different listening sessions.
Okay, perfect.
So
That's the
this one
questions,
is, yep,
just
this one's
application.
Q&A with United for Children. The other three listening sessions, one was yesterday, one's tomorrow, the other one's on Friday.
Thank
Those
you.
are the transition meetings with Watershed. That's
Got
just
it.
to inform statewide community leader work.
Right. So that was one of the 3 requirements. Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I'm getting confused.
And there are so many things going on right now. I think what the biggest impression is that we really want to make sure we do it right. We want to make sure we're listening to everything. And we are not a part of those sessions, neither is the Office of Childhood. But once all 3 of those sessions are done, they're going to be putting a report together so that we really know the great things that are happening, the concerns that people have, so that we can take all of that into account. So we're not leaving anything off as we move forward, but that we're also helping to address, pain points that different people may have, and things that we could improve just to make this even better.
And to clarify that a little bit further, all your input from the individual sessions, conversations that we had, and the surveys you all have submitted, those notes will go to United for Children as well.
Thank you, Apurva. All right, well, I'm not seeing any additional question. I really appreciate everybody hopping on at such late notice. We were able to get through in the hour, but if you have anything else that you have a question about, please don't hesitate to reach back out to us, and we'll do our best to answer that and to share that information out with everybody else. All right, thank you.